grandmother, born in the 30s, was the daughter of a sharecropper in Mississippi, the Deep South. She worked in the cotton fields with her family through her teenage years. If you know anything about sharecropping, you know that it is ripe with economic inequality. The landowner would dictate the crop my grandfather grew and provide my grandpa's family with a place to live, seeds, and tools, all in return for a share of the crops. The interest rates on these provisions were so high that no matter how hard or how long my grandmother and her siblings and her parents worked, the family was always in debt. Sharecropping was outlawed in the 50s, but it was a powerful impetus for poverty and shame for my grandmother. My grandma eventually moved west to Watts, Compton area in the early 60s, looking for a better life. And it was there that my father was raised in subsidized housing known as the projects. I'll spare you the details on the history of the projects, but it too, like sharecropping, was a system that perpetuated inequality and with it shame. Neighborhoods like these were vulnerable to high unemployment, crime, drugs, and violence. It was neighborhoods similar to these that I grew up in, and like my father, the work it took me to survive and the environment left me vulnerable to being shamed by others, feeling misunderstood and invisible. It's kind of like being at an airport. Stick with me here. You know those moving sidewalks at the airport? I felt like I was walking beside one, watching people on the moving sidewalk pass me by, though I was taking just as many steps, if not more, than they were. It took me extra effort to cover a relatively short distance. But also, here's the shame piece for me. I experienced people on that moving sidewalk looking back, making assumptions about who I was, my abilities, based on the relative progress that I made. Let me tell you two stories to give you an example of what I mean. I was 11 years old in junior high school, and I had a science project due, you know, those infamous science projects, and it involved making a 3D model of a shark. I was really excited about this project. However, neither of my parents were in the home, nor did I have any materials to work with, nor did I have any money to buy any materials. So my only option was to go out and find what I needed. I rummaged through a lot to get the materials I need. It took me a good deal of time, but it was worth it because I was excited about my idea. I found a cardboard box, drew the outline of a shark, found a butter knife to cut out the outline, along with a slit for its fins. Then I cut out an outline for the fin and shoved it through the slit. 2D magically became 3D. I was very excited because it felt like an original idea in my mind and took creativity and ingenuity. And as I mentioned before, it took a good amount of time to wrap it up. However, I felt a pit in my stomach when I brought the project to class. It seemed like every other student had help from adults and better resources. Their projects were light years ahead of my own. I received a C- on that project. It wasn't so much the grade I remember, but the feeling that came along with it. The feeling that others thought that I was lazy or I didn't care about my schoolwork as much as my peers. Just like walking along that sidewalk, that moving sidewalk at the airport, I felt like the world was zipping by, grading me based on the assumption that I was just as resourced as they were. Fast forward to my senior year at Biola. I stopped by the Career Center to seek advice for employment. When I asked what I should do to prepare for the world beyond college, the advisor said these words: "Well, I can't see you in a suit. I can only see you doing manual labor." To be clear, that person no longer works here, and I'm not throwing shade at the Career Center. However, it's experiences like these, along with bouts with homelessness and food insecurity, that left me wrestling with feelings of shame and in desperate need of healing. Dr. Eric Tanis and Dr. Glenn Kenoshita, during my undergraduate years, helped me develop a biblical worldview that set the stage for me to press into the healing process when it presented itself to me. And for that, I'm very grateful. Vineyard Anaheim, my current home, my home church, was a safe place for me to begin the healing journey. They were incredibly non-judgmental and gave me room to express a range of emotions. I was free to express joy, fear, anger, shame, and talk about whatever I was experiencing in the moment. I learned an incredible amount about myself and the God who loves me. The Gore family, the Bayless family, the Watkins family, the Thorns, and so on and so forth, got off their moving sidewalk, slowed down and looked me in the eye, and they showed me an incredible amount of affection, even though I felt I had very little to give. Instead of managing me out of their lives, they possessed the confidence and skill to lovingly move toward my pain, took me about 4 or 5 years to regularly receive love from them so that I could finally feel safe. Out of their affection grew the unexpected gift of confession. The truth is, I had a long way to go regardless of my effort, but I needed a church to walk with me. I needed to know a God who loved me and was committed to me and who called me to a higher standard. I'm grateful that I experienced the church as Christ incarnate. They modeled vulnerability and showed me a more connected and God-fearing way of living life.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.